Welcome to Record-ology.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Record-ology. Okay, we've done a lot of beginner videos for people just getting started, people that are very similar to the way I was or the place I was when I started this channel, which was a place of beginning, of learning, and teaching, thereby learning some more. So that continues with this video as we take a look at the record itself. Now, we've done shows about how does a record player work. We've done shows about a lot of aspects of both records and record players, but I don't think we've ever done one sort of explaining the layout of a record. And this, for the old timers, this may sound incredibly basic, but for people getting started, hopefully this is helpful. People ask me questions like, where do I place the needle on the record? Where does the song start? How do I know what song I'm playing? And again, we've touched on it before, but I thought it would be good to kind of go through and just kind of explain the layout of a record so you understand what you've got here. And, feel free to ask questions. There's no such thing as a stupid question on this channel. We're all learning. And I think it's kind of similar to like a senior learning a computer or somebody that didn't grow up with the technology. It can be really frustrating, and for me, it's my kids aren't teenagers anymore. When they were teenagers, trying to get them to explain Snapchat to me, it's just, I didn't grow up with it, so it's frustrating and it's annoying not knowing how it works. So this is to help. I'm going to use a Q-tip as a pointer because I don't want to touch the record and I don't want to use any metal sharp objects. So let's start from the record itself. So a record, and this applies to vinyl records like this and 45s as well. We're not going to go into shellac records today. It's a little different. A lot of the same basic premise, but some differences as well. But basically, it's made out of plastic. You'll hear the term vinyl, which is the V of polyvinyl chloride, or PVC. It's the same material that they make plumbing pipes out of, like white plumbing pipes. And it happens to be really low noise because when the record is being played, and we're not going to go into the basics of the record player because we've done that, how to play a record, how record players work videos in the past. But essentially, just to recap, the needle, which has a little diamond and sometimes sapphire chip on the very, very, very teeny, pokey, tiny point. I'm going to get so much crap for saying pokey, I just know it. Anyway, the very tiny point of the stylus, the needle itself where it touches, that's a physical contact. And you're dragging, if it's a diamond, the hardest substance on Earth through a piece of relatively soft plastic. So that's why it's important to understand the weight that you're placing upon the record. I can just see it now. People are like, is he really going to do 8 minutes on this? Yes, I will. But really, I want to help people that, this is so completely new. But basically, so it's important to understand the weight. And again, we've talked about tone arms and setting counterbalances before, so we won't go into that here. So it rides through the groove and it picks up vibrations, which are modulation in the plastic, and amplifies those modulations and turns that into sound that you and I can hear. So the record itself, what we have here is a pretty common record. This one's nice to illustrate because it's got five. Okay, it's got 5 songs. I can count. It's amazing. On this side of the record, that's not a set amount. Some records will have more. In fact, somebody gave me that amazing Patsy Cline record the other day. I think it has 11 songs on every side. Something to understand is when the engineer is creating the record itself, the master that the record is printed from, they have control over how wide the grooves are and how many songs they can place on there. That can impact sound quality. It just depends. So it's up to how the engineer decides to do it. This one is laid out, with only 5 songs. That's actually a pretty typical amount for a record. And if the more room they have, the better. You can see that this area, we'll talk about that in a minute, is pretty large. That's indicative of the fact that they weren't running out of room. So they can make the songs wider on the record, which is good. The wider the groove, the more room there is for that groove, or I should say the space in between the grooves. That's really where they can control it. Allows for better sound. Let's just say that. So You keep hearing groove, groove, groove. What the heck is that? So the groove is a very small microscopic channel. Think of it like a canyon. So the walls of the canyon, the walls of the groove are not smooth. What you see is the modulation. That's the sound. Those are the vibrations recorded or pressed or cut into that plastic. And when the needle goes through there, it vibrates as well. And the way it vibrates is the same way that it was recorded onto the disc, and you get those vibrations back out, you hear that sound. So looking at the record here, there is only one groove for the entire record, one single groove. So how can you play individual songs? So let's take a look here. This record has 5 songs, like we said, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, listed on the label. That's where you're going to find the songs, and that corresponds to these 5 areas right here. So these 5 areas are the songs on the record. Now, most records, probably every record that you and I are going to come into contact with on any given day, start from the outside. That means that the beginning of the groove, the opening of the canyon, is on this outside edge. And the end of the canyon is over here. So from here to here, there is one continuous groove. And you'll see these lines here. Those separate the different songs, and they purposely make it a little bit wider, those silent areas between the songs. So if you don't want to start the record at the beginning, you can move it between those songs. Like we want to play song number 4, we can line up the needle, the stylus, and the best way to do that is to look from top down. And it's not going to be 100% perfect. Sometimes you get good at nailing it. I've got to the point where I can usually nail it. And sometimes those spaces in between are smaller than others, so it can depend. And sometimes there's records that don't have individually separated tracks, so it's one continuous thing. But even with those separations, that's still a part of that one long concentric groove that starts from the outside and goes to the inside. So just like the record itself begins here and ends here, so does each song. So the beginning of this particular song starts here on this outside area and then works to the middle. It's a gigantic spiral. A very, very long, long spiral. In fact, if anybody knows the length of an average record groove, let me know down in the comments below. I forget. But it's considerable. And it depends, too. There's a lot of factors that it depends on. But basically, if you want to play, say, the song number 5, you would move the tone arm over, looking down on top of that. From this angle, you have to move it a little bit like that so you can see it. But essentially, you move it to the beginning of that song, and then you can lower the tone arm and play that song. The groove, because it's a concentric spiral, is going to constantly move that tone arm in. So as the song plays, it's going to slowly move to the very, very end. Then, when it reaches the end of the last song on the record, it's going to hit this area here, which you will see. In fact, if we zoom in, you can see this kind of mesmerizing effect. What you're seeing there, I'm going to stop it just so you can see what's happening here. What you're seeing, it's not anything fancy. It's the end of the groove. The end of that canyon opens up into this wide area, and they take the groove into kind of big sweeping motions into a circle. And so you'll see that they lead eventually to this area right here. This is called a lead out or a run out groove. And basically what it does is it allows the record needle to go someplace. In this case, once you hit the end of the song, it'll just kind of quickly move over here. Not crossing between the grooves, but as this thing is spinning, see how it looks like it's moving? It's because it's carrying the stylus ultimately to a circle that goes nowhere. That way the needle doesn't go into the paper, it doesn't ride over the musical grooves and wear them out. And fully automatic or fully manual turntable, it'll just spin until you're done, and you can retrieve the tone arm and put it back in its rest. An automatic tone arm like this, and we'll show you what a run out groove looks like. So let's ride that run out groove. So it goes to the end, and this particular side says, hey, that record is done, I'm going to return it. It's an automatic feature. Some record players have an auto return even if they're not fully automatic. So there you go, guys. I hope this was helpful. That is how a record is laid out. It does not damage anything if you start one song or the other or in the middle of the song. It's totally fine. You can play it from the beginning. You can play it anywhere in between. You do not need to play the entire record start to finish every time. Just play it where you want, whatever you want. And kind of like digital music, unlike a tape, you have access to any point of the song at any time you want. So there you go, guys. Hope this was helpful. If it is, give me a thumbs up. If not, thumbs down. Whatever. I just appreciate you guys being out there. Thank you so very much. Subscribe if you haven't done so already. And that is going to do it. We will see you tomorrow.